Welcome to Impact Farming, where we introduce you to the people and ideas that will have a massive impact on your farming operation. Brought to you by Farm Marketer. Sit down, start the engine, and let's roll with today's show.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Impact Farming Show. Today we have an amazing guest with us. We have Elaine Froese, who is a professional speaker. She's an author and she's a coach that helps farm families through the difficult stuff, succession planning, business issues, and the one we absolutely love the most on all farms everywhere is communication. Welcome, Elaine.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I actually heard and I see that you brought a special friend. Who do we have with us?
This is Beanie Baby Ox. He's been traveling with me for 16 years. And the reason I have him is he's a bull, so to speak. And we're talking about conflict resolution. So I'm talking about discuss the undiscussable, dealing with the bull in the middle of the room of your farm family that everybody knows is there, that nobody's willing to talk about. And the reason I carry him is he's also my talking stick. So when I do farm family meetings, so that people can speak uninterrupted, when I'm holding the bull, I speak.
And then I speak.
Right.
Okay. Are we going to do this throughout the show?
I don't think the reviewers want to put up with that, but I just recently did a large seminar of 180 women in Stratford, Ontario, and it was very heartwarming to me that after we got through the conversation, that just understanding some of the tools that they could use for having family meetings and resolving some of the conflict was really important. So I have two of these in case I ever lose one, but they're also soft, so if they get thrown across the room, they don't hurt.
Okay.
And so I would encourage people to take the bull by the horns and start thinking about positive conflict in their families.
I love it.
You can sit there for a while.
I love it. So, positive conflict behaviors. That is a big one. And I mean, you deal with this stuff, right? You work with families. I would assume you work with them in the good and probably a lot of times in the bad times. So I'm so excited for you to come and join us on this one. I think communication and learning positive conflict behaviors, just amazing for anybody. Why don't we start with unwritten rules? Is that a good place to start?
So there's a woman called Susan Forward who wrote a book called Emotional Blackmail. And her saying would be, where is it written, da da da. So the one that I used in Saskatoon, which really hit a nerve, was, where is it written that farm women have to have a garden?
Oh.
9 people came up to me and hugged me. Oh, my father-in-law is not going to like that you said that, but I really like what you said. So unwritten rules are assumptions and things that you're making.
I like it.
The other thing is when you talk about assumptions, I brought my mask along. I haven't used this for a while, but this would be like stinking thinking.
Oh.
Right? So in conflict, you probably have a filter. Like if I have a long-standing disagreement with you, say I'm the mother-in-law, you're the daughter-in-law, no matter what you do, Tracy, you come, you want to have a nice celebration with me, or you want to do something with me, right away I kind of call this my conflict filter, comes up. It doesn't matter what you say to me, I'm always going to have this between us.
Yeah.
And in positive conflict resolution behavior, I want to get rid of the mask, I want to get rid of the filter and say, okay, we're good, we're clear, and Brené Brown says being clear is kind. So we can get rid of these filters or masks that we're wearing and not have bad conflict. We can have conflict that's resolvable, that can be very positive. So there's certain behaviors that we need to embrace to be more proactive with our conflict.
Okay, I like that. So one more thing I wanted to ask you about to set the stage a little bit before we dive in. In a family, as we all know, sometimes we can be so different from each other. Sometimes you might look at your sibling and go, who's your parents, right? Mm-hmm. And we're just also very different, but yet the same family. So can you talk a little bit about communication styles?
Okay. So there's 4 different communication styles. There would be ideas. So an idea person wants to have lots of time to sort of share the big picture and not be interrupted.
Okay.
And you let them unfold their ideas. Another style would be people orientation. So I'm a people person, communicator. I want to know, how was your drive here? And I want to know, how did you celebrate on the weekend? Those kinds of things. Another style would be action oriented, which is my husband. So people who are action oriented and very ambitious, determined, task oriented. They want brief, they want concise, and they don't use a lot of words. And sometimes it would be helpful to use more words, like when he said, Elaine, come pick me up at the barn. And I drove to the barn. I go, Wes, I can't find you. He said, I'm at Henry's barn, which was another 6 miles in the other direction. So
one more word.
Yeah, one more word would have really helped. And we burnt that barn down, but don't distress. It was an old barn that had been recycled for barnwood, and then that person didn't finish that project. So a match in 15 minutes was all it took to get rid of that communication problem. So
there you go.
And then the last one would be process. So if you're the person on your farm who's the accountant, bookkeeper, does all the office admin, I suspect that you also likely have a style of wanting things to be in order. A comes before B, comes before C. You don't like surprises, and you pay great attention to detail. So you need to be really clear and logistical in your communication. So again, if people want to do that assessment, they just can go to my Farm Family Toolkit on my homepage on my website at farmfamilycoach.com, and they can fill it out and see what they discover.
I think knowing those types of things are so valuable, especially in my company. I've taken a lot of time for the farm, for my family, and also for my company to learn that type of information, because when you know how somebody operates, then you can, well, one, you're aware, and then two, well, you're aware, and then you start to understand them, and then you can respect them, and then you also know what they need.
And how they like to be communicated to.
Yeah, because probably I'd say all four of those are totally different people, right?
Yeah, and in our family there are 4 different people.
Oh, you have all 4 of them? Which, again, could be some conflict, but on the flip side, what an amazing family farm operation.
Well, and then the other thing is that you can ask for what you need, and you can say, I need more explanation, or I need to write that down, or I need more time.
Okay.
Because process people don't like to be pushed and shoved.
Right.
So they can say, well, yes, I will get back to you by tomorrow at noon. And so then you can start to put healthy boundaries around what's a reasonable expectation.
Okay. That's excellent. I think that sets the scenario to talk about conflict.
Good.
So why don't we dive in and talk about positive conflict behaviors?
So I've been trained, Tracy, in a thing called the conflict dynamic profile, and this is just a copy of the development guide.
Okay.
So what I'll walk you through is the 5 positive conflict behaviors, and the first one is the ability to take something from another person's perspective, or you would call it putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Okay.
So can you imagine what it's like to be 65 years old and have everybody in town saying, oh, so when are you retiring? And you're going, I'm not.
Yes.
I don't want to. And retirement is not a word that a lot of farmers like. So I call it reinvention. And when are you changing your role on the farm as you bring on the next generation? Okay? So the first conflict tool is, do I know what it feels like to be Tracy? Or does Tracy know what it feels like to be Elaine? So the ability to put yourself in the other person's shoes is a very positive kind of thing. Or what's it like to be a young mom with 2 small children, trying to keep them safe on a farm, right? So that would be the first one. So again, when you're having these conversations, don't interrupt, which is why this becomes a useful tool, because as long as I'm holding this, I get as much time as I need to explain my position and my perspective. Okay?
I love it.
So another one would be the ability to share emotion. And you'll hear your accountant or your lawyer say, we have to keep the emotion out of this, or we shouldn't do emotion in business, which I think is totally not true. And Pierrette de Rocher, who many of you will read in Country Guide, she's a friend of mine from Quebec who's a wonderful clinical psychologist. She'll say, oh no, Elaine, 80% of farm decisions are emotional ones. So emotion is a good thing, but it should be managed well and expressed well. So the ability to say, I'm frustrated, or I'm hurt, or I'm disappointed, I'm angry, I'm having a hard time accepting what you're telling me. All of that ability is a very positive, constructive behavior.
Okay.
And then another one would be your ability to create solutions. So I come from a home ec degree background where I was trained that if you have a problem, you research solutions and you pick the best one and you act on it. So I'm always looking for resources and data and solving problems. And farmers, if you think of farmers, they love to fix things, right? They love to create solutions.
Absolutely.
Well, then just transfer that skill from shopping around for a sprayer or a swather or a baler, transfer that skill to how you deal with people. Well, what's the problem here? So you actually attacked the problem. So the bull is in the middle of the room and you give it a name. So the problem might be fairness, or the problem might be financial transparency, or the problem might be debt servicing. Whatever the problem is, you attack the problem, not the person. And you create solutions and you brainstorm and you pull in what's going to work with that.
Okay.
So we've got perspective taking, sharing your emotions, creating solutions. Another one is your ability to reach out. So Tracy, you're not looking very good today. Like, are you okay? And you come from curiosity and you reach out to the person. Have I offended you? Is there something not right between us? Because something's just off.
Yeah.
And you can say, yeah, actually there is, or no, there isn't, right? And then the other one is the ability to take time to think about processing what you want your response to be. So it's called reflective thinking. And everyone says bite your tongue. Well, biting your tongue is okay for a moment, but counting to 10 and delaying your response, but taking time to think is a really good conflict tool. And say, you know what? I don't have a solution. I don't have an answer for that right now. But again, I'll get back to you by tomorrow at noon. And so you spend some time to process. And if that's your communication style, you don't want to be pushed and shoved.
Yeah.
Right? And delaying the response then also ties into that. And then the last one would be the ability to adapt, to be open and to be flexible and say, wow, Tracy, you're really upset. What's this really about? You know, and so you're bringing, de-escalating the situation, and you're adapting to what I see you being angry about or being concerned about. And I'm just reaching out to you, and I'm being open and flexible to what you need in the moment.
Nice.
Sounds easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, that all sounds so amazing. Why can't we all just do that perfectly, right?
Well, because we wake up every morning and we get to choose our response. Am I going to be, as Marilee Adams says, am I going to be a learner today and take responsibility for my actions? Or am I going to be a judger and drive everybody down into this pit of despair and angst?
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, two that I love of those, I mean, they're all amazing, but two that I've done a lot of learning on is putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Taking.
Wow, isn't that amazing? And especially in the farm, I've started to do a lot of that as the main farm operator, but we have older generations, and you think of that. And sometimes the younger generation, we're keen, we want to get in there, we want to take over, we want to conquer the world. But you think about it, and now that I have a farm and you start looking, I'm young yet, but you look at those years that are going to quickly go till retirement. And every year you're growing that farm operation and you're just getting it to where you want to be. And then the younger generation just expects you to retire.
No, but when can you enjoy it?
Right. But even just for the younger generation, to speak to them, put yourself in the older generation's shoes. How do they feel? Right?
Right, and that's a very good question. How are you feeling?
Yeah, how are you feeling? So I started to think about things a little bit different. Why is that person reacting that way? What are they going through that is causing that reaction, right? And when you can actually just get out of your own head and start thinking.
And that's why the phrase, I'm just curious, is a very helpful
I'm just
pre-phrase.
curious.
Yeah. I'm just curious what's happening for you today, or I'm just curious why you're upset. And what that does is it deflates the defense mechanism, because you're not pushing at that person from judgment.
Okay.
You're coming from curiosity. And there's another saying in the Bible, actually, that says mercy triumphs over judgment. So coming towards the other person with grace and mercy and curiosity will get you a lot further.
And I'm just curious. I like that one because I'm also a very direct person, and some people aren't. So sometimes maybe having that nice phrase, I'm curious, versus maybe a different way you'd word that might come off
Too strong.
too strong. So I'm just curious. I like that.
Also, in what you just said, there's certain cultures in Canada, many of who I've worked with as dairy farmers and in Southern Ontario, where the culture is very harsh, very direct, and very blunt, and that's seen as normal.
Right.
It's not helpful. And I talked to a woman who said, Elaine, sometimes people are much too direct and much too blunt with their words, and I go, yes. And more grace and kindness would get them a lot further. So be careful with your tonality,
Yeah.
and how quickly you come across.
And because I am the way I am, I don't think much of it, right?
But
yeah.
you do it in a gracious way, though, Tracy. But there's certain cultures where that bluntness and that directness and
Right.
harshness is expected. Well, just get over it. And for someone marrying into that kind of culture, it's very disconcerting. It's very harmful.
Okay.
Yeah,
I could see
not
that.
helpful.
Okay, so those are some great positive conflict tools, behaviors. Now, do we want to hop to the other side and talk about the negative ones?
Well, we'll just list them off quickly. So one of them is winning at all costs. It has to be my way. It has to be this way. Another one would be being abrasive. Avoidance is alive and well, of course.
Yeah.
Is, we'll just walk away, we'll run to the barn, we'll hop on the tractor, we'll go jump in the pickup truck and spin off the yard, and we'll come back tomorrow and just hope that this has just all gone away. And I've written a blog called Avoiding the Conflict Avoidance Dance, or Stopping the Conflict Avoidance Dance on your farm, and viewers can seek that out too. But it's just really important that all this hostile avoiding, and again, if it's positive to share your emotions, then it's negative to withhold them.
Yes.
And have this mask that we held up earlier, right? I'm hiding my emotions. I'm not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
What do you mean? No, I'm not going to talk. So silence is actually a form of violence, and that's from the book Crucial Conversations by Kelly Patterson. And people who say, well, my dad or my mom refused to talk. Well, I said, then you're being abused, and that's not helpful. So that would be another one. And what else have I got down there? Self-criticizing and demeaning others, disrespectful names. None of that is going to get you towards what you want. And in conflict resolution, you can think of it as like positions and interests. You have a position over here, I have a position. We both are a little bit uptight right now because we're not meeting in the middle, so to speak. But if you really dive down to what's going on below, what is it we both want? And on a farm, don't you both want to farm? Don't you want to have a profitable farm? Don't you want to have happy family members and good relationships? Well, if that's what you say you want, then up here, you're going to have to figure this out and get this reconciled and work on creating a solution that works for both of you. And that might take some compromise, but it's what do you both want? And if you both want it that badly, then how long are you willing to work at getting it?
Okay. That's excellent.
But I have some hot buttons that we haven't pushed
Yeah, I was going to say the next one is a lot more fun to talk about.
Yeah.
So, hot buttons, and I think about this. In farms, we are usually all family. And the great thing about family is we have such a great history that we know each other's hot buttons.
And which buttons to push.
Yeah, and which buttons to push. And you think about that, that's different than a regular workforce. I mean, after time, you know people's hot buttons, but it's usually not appropriate to push them. But on the farm, we know where to poke, right where it hurts. So do you want to talk about hot buttons?
So with the conflict dynamic profile, they have a series. You actually can do this profile online. So again, if viewers want to do it, just go to my contact page at Farm Family Coach and say, Elaine, I want to do the conflict dynamic profile, and you can get it set up. It costs $55 Canadian.
Okay.
But my hot buttons, I'll tell you right away what mine are.
Ooh, I'm curious.
Yeah, so I have two that peak in the report. People who are aloof. So people who will not speak to me or give me the silent treatment.
Okay.
Because of course I'm highly extroverted
Yeah.
and I'm a communicator and I want to know what you're thinking.
Okay.
So if you don't talk to me, that doesn't go over so well. My other hot button would be people who promise me something who are unreliable but don't do what they say they will do.
Okay.
So if you promise to come to my farm today like you have, but you show up 3 hours late, then that's not a really good thing, right? By the way, she didn't show up late.
I was early.
She was early. And she brought me flowers. It was wonderful. So this whole hot button thing is about what you don't like. And the one for your age group, for the next gen and the millennials, would be micromanaging.
Oh.
So if you're a young successor and you're taking over the farm, you're the next gen, you're practicing management, you're getting all these good skills, and you feel like you can't even buy a $10 John Deere filter, this is a true example, for your farm because you have to get it cleared first with the founder, you're not a happy camper.
Yeah.
So being micromanaged is not a good one. We've talked about being aloof. Another one would be abrasive behavior.
Okay.
So I did not grow up in a yelling family, and you marry into a yelling family.
Wow.
Your hot buttons are going to get pushed a lot because there's just way too much hostility and abrasiveness happening, and that's just not part of your
How would you even cope?
Yeah. Well, you would have to speak out against that and say, excuse me, but when you're in my presence, I want everybody to use an inside voice. And I actually had a coaching call once where the daughter-in-law was really, really agitated. And I said, I'm your coach. I am not your father-in-law. Would you please talk to me in a kinder tone? And I think she was quite shocked, actually. And I had to bring her down because just the way she was talking to me was very, very tense and had a harshness and a tonality that I found quite abrasive. Okay. So that was not helpful. What's related to micromanaging is people who are over analytical. So did you do this? Well, can I see it? And I think that the bookkeepers and the accountant people in the farms would be a little bit, come on, I gave you the reports, you have the data. Oh no, we need to no. So that might push a button. Another one would be people who are self-centered, and I think this becomes a problem where, particularly with people who become isolated on farms, Tracy, which I think is again another problem. It can get really lonely sometimes and people pull back and it's always about them, or they get what we call the victim role. That's not helpful.
No.
So that can push some buttons too. And then people who don't say thank you. So I know this to be true for many of you out there who are founders and many of you who are next gen successors, that it would make a truckload of difference to you if someone would say, I'm proud of you, son, or I'm thankful for you, dad, or that was an amazing job you did, daughter-in-law. They go through all this hard work day after day after day, and nobody says thank you.
Yeah.
And again, Dr. Brian Goldman, who I just met this winter, it was great. He's the podcaster with White Coat Black Art. He's on CBC sometimes. Dr. Goldman just wrote a book on the power of kindness. What a concept. He wrote an entire book about it because kindness can get you a long way just by being appreciative, showing empathy, right? Another hot button is, can I trust you? So if you're untrustworthy, well, forget it, Elaine. That's never going to happen because they would never show up, or they would never do that because I just can't trust them. So I've given you a bit of a laundry list of hot buttons, but if you understand what your hot buttons are, then you can say, wow, why am I agitated? And the other thing I need viewers to understand is that when you're angry and when you're going like this or when you're going like this, think about why you're like this. It's not your anger. it's before that. It's somebody has hurt you, someone has made you feel afraid, or somebody has really frustrated you.
Okay.
So ask, why is this triggering me? Am I hurt? Am I sad? Am I afraid? Or am I frustrated? And for those of you who are next gen successors, you are probably all three, but the big one for you is frustration. Mm-hmm. It's because it's that pain of not knowing someday this farm will all be yours. It's the biggest lie in agriculture.
Yeah.
Lots of conflict around that sentence, because a promise is, and a conversation is, as Jolene Brown says, is not a contract. And so we have all this conflict happening. So I don't know if we've helped the viewers, Tracy, but I guess I really would like people to understand that we get to choose conflict as a business risk management strategy. You get really good at the good things like perspective taking, sharing your emotions, adapting, yielding a little bit, finding out those common interests, then you're going to be awesome.
I have one. Is it on your list? Liars? Is that a hot button?
Yeah.
That would fall somewhere in there?
That would fall in the untrustworthy category.
Okay.
You can't trust them because they tell different stories.
That's a hot button for me.
So Brené Brown has a great new book called Dare to Lead, and go and just Brené Brown, find her on YouTube as well, or daretolead.com. But she will say, what is the story you're telling yourself? So a liar is telling themselves a story that's acceptable behavior. No, it's not. And especially in our farm, we have a very high value for honesty. So I used to have somebody on our team that would say, I'm not going to lie to you. And that was how they would preface their sentences. I say, stop. You don't even have to say that, because on this farm, we have zero tolerance for lying. So you're not going to say, I'm not going to lie to you. That's not a helpful comment.
Right. That just puts you on edge.
So I guess the other thing I'm saying, Tracy, is watch your language.
Yeah.
Are you using inflammatory language, or are you being gracious?
Yeah.
Okay, but what would it look like on our farms if we were not afraid of embracing conflict, grabbing the bull by the horns, and getting it done? It would be so amazing.
It'd be so amazing. I think of how many farm families out there, whoever's watching, just different families I've known, if we could all just talk about that, talk about what's bothering us, how many farm families would be saved? How many farms would be saved if we could just talk about conflict? So, one of the things that drive me absolutely batty, and we spoke about it a little bit earlier, is the lack of time that is put on teaching and learning communication. And our school system is great, and we're so very fortunate, I know that. But communication affects every single relationship we have. Friends, family, spouse is a big one, children, workplace. Everything we do is trying to communicate with others. And so little is taught that it's just absolutely one of my biggest frustrations in life. It really is.
So that's why I think this is a great tool to get, Tracy, because if you can embrace conflict, you'll be a much more effective communicator. And this tool that I have, the conflict dynamic profile, was developed down in Florida by Dr. Craig Rundy, who wrote the book Becoming a Competent Conflict Leader. And it's a map, and farmers love maps, and it's a foundation for you to figure out, what am I doing well and how could I do it better? So what would it look like on your farm if you had very little conflict that was not resolved?
Wow.
Yeah.
What a peaceful place that farm would be.
Well, and also more productive, because all the energy now that you're sucking away for conflict would be good energy that you can put towards management and being more productive and more profitable.
Wow. I have a question for you. And you think of the different communication styles, and maybe this is personality types, extroverts versus introverts. And this is one that I've worked with over the years. You have two people that are communicating. One's an extrovert. One's quick and wants to talk about it and wants answers now. One's a processor. one needs time to think. So we spoke about the destructive behavior of leaving the conversation, avoiding. So where is that balance for that, let's call it a relationship, whether it's children, whatever the dynamic is? How do you work with that? Tracy is an extrovert and she wants answers right away. No, let's talk about it right now. But we also need to respect the individuals that need time to process.
So one of the first things I would do is ask permission.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about this now?
Okay.
Or later? And my spouse would say later.
Okay.
And would you like to give me an answer by tomorrow at noon or by tonight at 8 o'clock? Tomorrow at noon sounds good.
Okay.
So it's creating permission and creating boundaries and reasonable timelines and reasonable expectations.
Okay.
And not making assumptions. So again, in conflict, when someone's really, really agitated and escalated, they need time to come down.
Yeah.
And for you and I, that might be quicker than somebody, and we would do it through processing with each other, because you and I are very similar in being extroverts. But people who want to process things want to pull away. They need quiet time. They want to be in their own space, and they want to think out what their response is going to be. So different is not wrong.
No.
It's just different. What do you need? What do you need? And I will respect what you need. So we have to figure out what we both need and respect that and not take it as a personal offense. The other thing that Brené Brown said in her book Dare to Lead that was really interesting to me is, remember, we're all people. People, people, people. So let's just be kind to each other as people and give people what they need in the time they need it.
That's a good one. I came up with this saying, and I said, we are all just people peopling.
Yes.
And one of my team, they laughed and they're like, that's interesting. And if you think of it, whether we are doing good behaviors or bad behaviors, we're just people peopling, doing the best that we can do with what we know at that time, right?
Right.
Well, that is excellent. I want to ask you one more question, because conflict is big. And you know what? Being able to have those positive behaviors are great. Being aware of the destructive ones are even better. Knowing when to be mature and take some time and cool down and not say things that we don't mean is very important. Because if you think of it, words stick. What was that old saying that we used to say in school?
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Yeah, and it's so wrong.
Yep.
Because you know what? Throw sticks at somebody. They're going to heal, they're going to get over it, but words will never, ever be forgotten. And you think of how many farm families or whatever the case is where you may say something in the heat of anger.
It's like toothpaste. You can't get it back in the tube.
You can't ever, ever get it back. So let's talk about those situations where maybe we say something or do something that we shouldn't have. How do we say sorry?
So there's another book. It's called When Sorry Is Not Enough by Dr. Gary Chapman. And I actually have a blog on it that you can search on my website called Saying Sorry at Harvest. Sorry is not enough when words are not the only thing that a person wants as an apology. So first of all, you start with words. I'm very sorry. It was not my intention to cause offense. So you can use the sorry apology first. But you may also want to go further and say, what do I need to do to make it right? And that is an action. That's not just words, that's also an action. Or how would you like me to pay for this? And you're finding out and exploring. And according to Dr. Chapman, there's like 4 or 5 different, just like there's 5 different love languages, there's different languages around making an apology. So for some people, words are enough, Tracy, to say, I was wrong, please forgive me. I need to know I'm forgiven, and we need to start with a clean slate. But for other people, it would be reconciliation in terms of restitution. Like,
Okay.
what can I do to make this right?
Okay.
Okay, so again, I would just think about asking the other person, I apologize, do you accept my apology? I need your forgiveness. I want us to start fresh. Is there anything else?
Okay, that's great. Yeah, because words do hurt, and we got to be careful with them. And that, you know what, that's why I'm so passionate about interviewing people like you with amazing ideas, because at the end of the day, we're all family on the farm, and we want our farms and family to continue. And again, how much time do we spend learning about communication and conflict? And if we can bring our audience great topics and great guests like you, where they can take nuggets of those ideas and then just learn and bring that back to the farm family. Yeah, discuss the undiscussable.
Deal with what's in the middle of the room that you're avoiding and stop avoiding it.
Oh, I love it. I think that is a perfect place to end, unless you have anything more wise than those words to share.
That's good. I read Proverbs every day and would encourage other people to do it, just because we all need to be reminded we're human, we make mistakes, and when we make mistakes we own up to them, we take responsibility, and we say, what can I do to make it right? And then you make it right.
That was even better.
There you go.
Excellent. On that note, thank you so much for joining us.
You've been listening to Impact Farming. For more great episodes and articles designed to help you manage and grow your farming operation, head on over to farmmarketer.com. Don't forget to sign up while you're there. We will see you on the next episode.